driving around looking at properties, and we're on a sand, it's not really a dirt road here, it's a sand road. Not as bad as the ones we were on yesterday. We have 5 possible properties we're going to drive past, and the weather's not quite as good today. There's like a giant storm over here that we're keeping an eye on, so we're probably going to get some rain today. We're having no luck today. I feel like yesterday we did so well. We found all 4 in a row, like decently easy. And today we're finding nothing. This is our 3rd property that we're still like, we don't see a for sale sign or anything. We gave up. We're just driving into Brantford now. This was pretty common, especially when we didn't have an exact address that we were looking for. But that's okay. We stopped into Brantford, got some food, and continued on to look at more. Okay, last property of the day. It's a good 7 miles outside of town. That's a good looking farm.
In 600 feet, you will arrive at your destination.
So there's the end of their property. There's that fence, so I think it starts right here. Yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
A lot of clearing out to do.
Although, yeah, it said partially cleared, but that does not look cleared at all whatsoever. Is this the right one? It might be this one, actually. This one kind of looks like the picture. We'd still have to, like, grade it a little bit, but...
It's cut, though.
Yeah. That's not bad. We saw a couple nice properties and some good areas of northern Florida, but we were still thinking about one of the properties that we saw yesterday, so I decided to call the realtor. Yesterday was kind of a bust. We drove around for, gosh, several hours just searching for properties that we could not find. And you know, it's always helpful just driving around and kind of getting a feel for the area, because that lets you know where we want to kind of focus our search, which is always what we're trying to do, is like narrow down the area. But as we were driving around, we were just like, you know what, we really like the property that we looked at. So we called the realtor and she said that she would meet us today, so we're going to go walk that property and see what we think. Of course, it is one of the higher ones that we've looked at in terms of budget. But I think you're getting a lot for it. It's a bigger piece of property, it's 6 acres, and it's in a really great area. So, you know, location. So we're gonna go look. This property checked a lot of our boxes. It was a good size. We were pretty happy with the location, and there were some improvements. It had been partially cleared. There were a couple sheds. There was a kind of a rough driveway. It was mostly fenced and has a gate. So a couple good things going for it. A little rough. There is a driveway cleared, but it's going to need a little bit more work to level it out. That's a log. Yeah. The old Toyota's not made for this. One of the biggest things that we were looking for was a property with some decent sized trees. If there were some big live oaks, that was a bonus. And we wanted it in a quiet location and out of a flood zone. So all of those things together were really proving to be pretty tricky, but this was showing some promise. The owner had cleared the inside of the property, so it was fairly easy to walk around. They put in 2 different sheds and this little storage building, so it was nice just to have something on the property. Probably not what we would have picked and where we would have put it, but it's nice that you're not starting from scratch. After so many previous trips looking at houses and property, we were really not expecting to find anything in particular on this trip. It was really more of a scouting mission in our minds, but after looking at this property, we felt like we had a lot of things to think about very seriously, and we needed to do some quick thinking because the market moves really fast, and something like this probably won't sit for very long. So we decided to go into town and walk around downtown Madison and do some thinking. I wonder if the museum is open. Remember last time the museum was closed?
She was open.
It might be today.
Post office.
Last time we were in Madison, we didn't get to check out their little museum with some of the local history, and we didn't get to eat at Grumpy's yet, so we did those two things. We had to look up that episode of, what is it, Diner Impossible or something like that they were on? Yeah, I want to see it. We had lunch and coffee at Grumpy's, which is a local favorite cafe. A lot of people in the area like to go there, and it gave us a good feel for what it might be like living near this area. And then we continued to walk through the historic area of downtown Madison. Museum? Yeah. Oh, it's open.
Yeah.
The first time we were here in the spring doing our other scouting mission, this museum was closed, so we didn't get to go in, but luckily on this day it was open. They have a volunteer that sits at the front who we talked with for a little while, and she said that if we were going to be residents of this area, that we should definitely come back and take a closer look at everything so that we get to know the history. And I have to say, they do a great job. They have so many different artifacts from the area, from all different time periods, and it was very interesting to look at everything. What is that, City Hall? Oh, it's the courthouse. You can't miss the courthouse. It's very easy to see when you're driving through Madison, and we'll be taking a closer look at that tomorrow. They have like little artsy things, and you know, there's a painting place, a lot of antique stores, cafes, yeah. They said go where the artists go, so.
Floors.
Life moves at a different pace here, and that's going to take some getting used to for us. Things are a bit slower, and that will be an adjustment, but it's one of the things that we are intentionally looking for is a slower pace, a more relaxed pace. And we have to say that the palm trees and the big live oaks are just the icing on the cake. So we were really enjoying walking around and exploring this area. Love their front porches.
Yeah,
Get a rocking chair. Oh, is this is where we got coffee last time? Okay. But we didn't get to go in the antique place. I want to check that out.
yeah. That was all closed. Remember last
It was, yeah. There are several antique stores in this area, not only in Madison, but in Monticello and all across northern Florida. Antique stores and flea markets are kind of a big thing. They have a lot of the vintage Pyrex and dishes, stoneware. Oh. Is it a rotary phone?
I remember the feel. Yeah.
Into that afternoon stormy time. The wind's picking up. While it might have looked like we were just wandering around having fun, it was actually a time of some very serious debate and consideration. We had a lot to think about. I made a ton of phone calls to county offices doing due diligence. We met with a land clearing contractor to get an estimate for site prep, and then we decided to put our offer in. And we waited anxiously. I made more phone calls, tried to figure out more of our plans, and eventually we got a call back from the realtor. There was a little bit of back and forth price negotiation, and eventually we settled on an agreement, and we were about to be under contract to be landowners in Florida. We just got the call from Sarah that the offer was accepted, and I'm literally standing right in front of the title company, which I thought was funny. She was like, "Oh, it's in Madison, you should go look for it." And I was turned around and the sign was right there.
We already got lunch.
That's funny. Yay! It was kind of hard to believe that this was actually happening. We went to get coffee and just kind of sat there and stared at each other like, is this really going to happen? Is this our property? We had been looking for so long, it was kind of hard to believe. The next day we were back in town working on contracts and going to some of the different offices in downtown to make sure that our plans were going to be possible on this property. And then we spent a little bit of time just exploring, and we wanted to go walk around the courthouse. We were reading that a lot of the buildings here date back to like the 1800s. And the courthouse was built like early 1900. We were just going to pop in and take a look at the building, and we ended up getting a private tour from the county clerk. He was so nice. He showed us the upstairs courtroom and told us a whole bunch about the history. I tell you what, this is small town living. It was such a fun and unexpected experience. And then we continued across the street. We went to look at some of the historic homes in downtown Madison. It's just such a pleasant area with a ton of history. We can't wait to spend more time here and get to know the people and visit the businesses and get to know the history of this area in more depth. The strange thing was that we were on a timeline. We had to head back to Tampa because we were flying home today. We had to pick up the dog and go back to our normal life in New Jersey. Now, this was really difficult because after so much searching, it almost didn't feel real that we finally found the spot that we thought that we could move forward with our plan and find the property that the tiny house could actually be put on legally, and we would have acreage and all of these things that we've been working on for so long. It almost didn't feel real, and it made it really hard to get on that plane and to leave Florida. But we were so excited with the process of moving forward, and we were really grateful that everything can be done remotely now, even closing on property. So we did as much as we could in person, and then everything else was handled electronically. We did our contract and the payment, and we got the deed in the mail about a week later. But as things go, when we finally had that deed in our hands, it was a little bit underwhelming because it's just a normal looking piece of paper. But the end of this long journey is the fact that we own land. We figured out where we are going to move the tiny house and start to work on our property and have a garden and do all of these things that we have talked about doing for years and years. So that is a huge step forward for us. We are so happy that the state of Florida allows people to legally live in an RV. And you might know from following other channels, there are some other YouTube RVers who also own property in the Big Bend area of Florida. Traveling Robert is somebody else that we follow. He has an RV camp situated a little bit closer to the coast in the area of Perry. And that is one of the areas that we did take a look at. The land is very affordable in Perry. It is, however, closer to the coast, and we ruled it out because of that. We really wanted to be well inland so that we would have more hurricane protection. Fast forward 3 weeks after we got the deed to our property in the mail, and after many, many conversations with locals when we were traveling in Florida, we were reassured that yes, Florida gets hit by hurricanes very regularly, but the Big Bend area is kind of a special area because they don't get hit by really strong storms as much as some of the other parts of Florida. And we felt really comforted by that. But we knew that part of being landowners in Florida was that we were going to just have to deal with hurricanes. It's part of the weather systems down there. And sure enough, 3 weeks after we became landowners in Florida, the first storm to hit the Big Bend area, Hurricane Idalia, went directly for all of these areas that we have really come to love. If you've seen our video from Cedar Key pretty much took a direct hit from Hurricane Idalia, and then it made a beeline into Madison and Valdosta and all of these towns that we have been visiting and these places that we really enjoy. Just took such a beating from Hurricane Idalia, and it was the strongest storm to hit that area. So there you go. That's our introduction to being landowners in Florida. We knew it was going to happen. We thought we would have a little bit more time, but we also said that we were very fortunate because we weren't in the middle of building a house or in the middle of doing some big construction project or work on the property. We hadn't just put a garden in or something like that that would have been ruined. So right now, all we have are dirt and trees and a couple sheds from the previous owner. So it's probably the best case scenario. The hard thing was that as we watched the weather and we knew that the most severe part of the storm was tracking right over our property, we didn't have anyone in the area that we really knew to contact to figure out if there was damage, if we still had a shed, if our gate was still in one piece, or if our trees were still standing upright. We had no idea. And that was really hard. We just sort of had to carry on with our day-to-day and try to keep working on our plans to get ready to move without knowing exactly the state of the property. And it would be a couple weeks still before we would be able to figure out what kind of damage it had sustained from Hurricane Idalia. Well, that is our introduction to being new landowners in the state of Florida. I'm sure it is not going to be our last hurricane experience. Thank you so much for coming along with us on this journey to find property. It has been a long path to get here. We are so excited to move forward with the process of relocating the tiny house and working on the property. Make sure that you are subscribed so that you can come along with us as the real work begins.
And 1, 2, 3 to 10, you begin to focus again, and no time flies. We'll have enough to realize this bigger than the both of us.